Interesting? Now let's take a breakdown the steps in self-sponsorship visa process as we did for Miss Nikki. It begins with incorporating a company in the UK. Yes, you can do this even if you are outside the UK. Next, applying for sponsorship license is crucial. Our firm has successfully assisted new businesses like Nikki's in obtaining sponsor license, providing guidance on HR policies, and offering an ongoing support. Once your skilled worker sponsor license is approved, you'll assign a certificate of sponsorship, which is known as COS. This is a critical step in the process, and our experienced team can guide you through it, ensuring a smooth journey. Finally, armed with the COS, you can apply for entry clearance as a skilled worker. The journey from business aspiration to thriving in the UK is now within reach. Today, Miss Nikki's fascinating bamboo accessories are taking over the UK market, and she is ecstatic about building a new life in the UK as a business grows parallelly. The self-sponsorship visa isn't just a visa. It's a gateway to an expansive business opportunity. From gaining an international presence to thriving a competitive tax regime, the UK offers a landscape for success. If you're considering this path, our firm's experienced team is here to guide you at every step of the way. Let me know if you have any comments. If you have an international aspiration like Miss Nikki, or if you would like to hear more real-life examples of business owners expanding to the UK, then keep watching our channel. Thank you very much for watching this video. See you in the next time. Bye-bye.
Hello and very good evening to one and all who's joining for today's webinar. Thank you so very much for your presence here today. And I hope that this webinar is of help to you as we go along with the changes. And there's quite a lot of information about what is changing, and there's quite a lot of news that you are receiving of late about the changes. From the firm's prospect, we are receiving a lot of inquiries about these changes, and there's a lot of ambiguity as well. I hope before we start, I would just want to request if you can hear me. Am I audible? If you could just say yes if I'm audible, that would be helpful. You could just write in your chat box if I'm audible. Yes, you are. Okay. Thank you very much for your response there. I think that somebody's raised a question. Is it? Okay. Thank you very much. So I had a query where somebody said I wasn't audible, so I thought I'll check with you. Okay, so without further ado, let's start with today's webinar on what are these changes and how this is going to affect you if you're making a decision to enter the UK and start a business in the UK. Then definitely you need to know on what these changes are. So this 60 minutes that we're going to speak is about the impact of the recent changes that has happened, and how it's going to affect the businesses which is now going to enter the UK. But all before that, we just would want to bring it to notice that this webinar and the contents of the webinar should not be construed as an advice, and definitely you need to consult a professional to sort of confirm about your particular situation that you're into. A little bit about me. I'm a UK qualified solicitor, and I've been practicing for the last more than 18 years plus. I have advised a lot of companies to set their footprints in the UK, and I'm still currently doing that. I help companies from not only India, from across the globe to set their footprints in the UK. And in this session, we're trying to understand the complexity involved in immigration regulation and the recent shifts which are particularly challenging. And this session is aimed to empower you with knowledge and strategies to confidently deal in with these changes and ensure your continued success for your business in the UK's evolving immigration landscape that it is. So, majorly, when you look into the changes, yes, you've been hearing about the changes that's going to impact the students who are going to enter as foreign national students. And then you also have changes related to the dependents not being allowed under some categories, um, and of course the hike in the fees, which is across and is going to affect a lot of categories. But the student changes or the healthcare worker changes or the dependents not being allowed for healthcare is not something that's going to affect you as a business, as an entrepreneur who is trying to enter and set footprints, unless you are into that sector. But it's largely the NHS who perhaps would get affected. However, what is an impact that you would see is the upsurge in the immigration health surcharge, which has kind of increased about 66% from where it was on the last time. And this is something that you uh, cannot avoid. It is a part of the process. And as we go along in this presentation, I will kind of run through in the process as well, and where exactly does this cost have a hit on when we are making those decisions, and how does one prepare themselves to kind of deal with it. I mean, there's really no magic on how you're going to deal it. You will have to budget it. So when you're kind of preparing your business plans, and when you're kind of doing reviews for the forecast for the next 3 to 5 years, you will need to take this into an account. From a taxation point of view, however, this can help because this can be shown as an expense, and you can claim taxes on basis of that there. So it can help, but at an inception, you definitely will have to budget it as you plan to take in your team to the UK there. So this has already kind of changed, and this is the new health surcharge is almost in place now. Also, what you have to be mindful of is the health surcharge is linked with the number of years that you will want the person to be there, or your employee to be there, or the team member that you intending to take to the UK. And this can be for a year, or can be for 3 years, or it can be for 5 years, and then the surcharges increases. And sometimes, because we are strategizing, we are planning, we're budgeting things, we can plan to say to grant this US for say about a year or 3 years, and then look into an extension for further duration as we progress in our business, as we see the momentum, as we see ourselves setting in. We will try to extend the duration for that, and at that time you need to pay. So what happens is the cost at the inception can kind of considerably come down, because you're not looking for a longer duration, you're looking for something in a shorter duration. So the health surcharge can be budgeted into, and we can plan. The next bit, which is again something that we've been hearing quite a lot, is about the increase in the salary threshold, which is the minimum income, and that's also going to increase from the spring of 2024. And this has been a substantial increase from the basic start point of 26,000 and odd amount to about 36,000 to 38,000 pounds that you now look into when you're trying to do an application here. Now, under the sponsorship license application, and since we represent quite a lot of companies, we see that it's just not taking in your associates to the UK to meet the business objectives. It sometimes is the key personnels, or the directors, or the founders themselves, who are trying to enter that geography to to make the presence felt in for the business there. Now, if it is a founder, then obviously you are already getting paid almost something similar in India, given that there's an upsurge in the salaries that are paid in India as well for senior positions and the senior roles there. So in that sense, it's more of a like to like. Also that uh, if it is your key personnel, then of course this is your investment, but you can structure this. We can work out to see on how do you structure their salary payment. What also is important, and this is what I want to really bring a point to the table here, is to say that these changes in salaries are proposed at the moment, and it's likely to come in spring of 2024. But there has been lot of concerns regarding these changes, and when you've seen the impact after the announcement, there has been further changes that has happened. For instance, in case of spouse visas, when they started, they said it's about £38,000, but then now they've dropped that down to about £28,000, and then there will be a further change that will happen in next year's spring. So, so with this particular arrangement as well, I think there's a lot of concerns which has been raised by the company, by the practitioners, to see the disparity. And I'm sure that you are from different domains, you are from a different businesses, but when they announce the salary changes, the impact is largely on hospitality industry, because the kind of salaries that they will now have to offer will be very difficult to then fix your ROIs and look into a profitability of the business here. Also, the disparity is geographically as well. So, for instance, in Edinburgh, Scotland, and places like there, almost the salary would have been, say, about £32,000, and it's just now like £5,000 and odd amount at times, which is the disparity between what is expected and what they're already getting paid, and therefore there will be some sort of a resolvement. So the MAC committee, which is so been appointed and who has kind of looked into this particular statistics, they have kind of studied this all before they have come up with this suggestion, which eventually went into become a law, will need to also look into when they're replacing the shortage occupation list with the new intended list that they want to bring up with. And when this happens, perhaps the immigration salary discount list, which is going to happen, is where we may be able to see that there may be a fine point, or there would be a fine sort of prints which can allow then some kind of a concession, maybe in geography wise, or maybe depending upon the domain or a particular industry that that they are going to enter in, because the impact would be huge. There is a shortage occupation of skilled workers, and if this is been made mandatory, it's going to affect the job roles which are currently in the UK and are not been fulfilled within the UK with their kind of set skills of people that they have there. So I wouldn't ask to be worried at the moment for a lot of people who are looking to make this decision to enter into and with the salary threshold. However, you will need to start budgeting to see, just in case if it didn't, then how would you kind of want to deal in with your numbers that you have proposed or projecting for the business that you want to set up in the UK. I think this third most important thing is the hurdles that will come in when the dependents are not allowed, or if the dependents are allowed, the salary requirements going to be on a higher side. So for now, with the change, hypothetically, if the new change of the salary increase, if that sets in, then the dependents will not find it challenging, because then it's in on par with what they will look at for them to enter live with their partners. But within that as well, I think there is still an abridge, because the spouse visa requirements for salaries have been now changing into two phases. There's one which will set in this particular spring, and then there will be one which will come up in another year, which will be around next year. So these are the three major sort of impact that we are seeing currently, which needs to be factored in when you're looking into sort of setting your business up. But again, having said all of this, I I don't think that it's discouraging businesses to enter in, because at this moment, our firm is still receiving inquiries and people and their companies who are instructing to sort of set themselves still in the UK. And as we go along in this discussion, we will find out what are these strong reasons on why the companies are still encouraged with this change in laws to enter in and set their footprints in the UK. So, with these challenges, the opportunity or the pathway available is also very important on what we pick up, can be the right kind of a strategy for the businesses to enter and set themselves up in the UK. So one of the ways is to obtain a sponsorship license. Like for instance, uh, we have just received a mandate from a Singapore-based company, and they are into electronic vehicles, and they are setting up their presence in the UK, and they will be taking up a huge team in the UK for executing their presence there. So in that case, we apply for the sponsorship license, and then we determine the number of people that are required to take in, and we issue a COS, and then they apply for entry clearances from their home country, and they enter the UK. It's a two-stage process. The stage one is within the UK, and the stage two happens in the home country, from where you have your team members who are required to enter the UK to meet the business objectives there. So the other way that you can look into is the business expansion route. Now, this business expansion is a replacement of sole representative visas. So, if you've been following the UK immigration rules, and you are acquainted with the different categories in past, like the investor visas, the entrepreneur visas, the sole representative visas, those categories have now been abolished. Those don't exist anymore, but they have been replaced by business expansion visas, which is again a very interesting way of entering the UK, where the companies do see that there's a potential, but they're not very sure. They would want to test waters. They want to take a small step at a time, and then make those decisions to sort of set themselves up aggressively in the UK once they see business coming in as expected by them, or as researched by them and projected by them. So business expansion becomes a better way to enter in such situation, where we're taking small steps. We kind of not getting into too much of compliances, and it's very categorical narratives that you are building at the inception, to say that you wouldn't you're not looking to go very aggressive at the very nascent stage of your business in the UK. The other route which is gaining popularity is the self-sponsorship route, where the founders, the business owners themselves would want to spearhead the operations, would want to set themselves up in the UK, which they can also do through sponsorship license. But primarily, we kind of advise this when you are into a particular business in your home country. However, when you enter in UK, you want to explore something different. You want to try a different domain, a different industry, and you want to start all over by yourself, which means right from the inception of incorporating your company in the UK to sort of, setting yourself up and then running that particular entity that you have set up. Now, the difference between the self-sponsorship and the business expansion is the business expansion entity that you set up in the UK will be a wholly owned subsidiary of your parent company in your home country, whereas under the self-sponsorship, it would be a different entity altogether, which may not have any linkage with the existing business that you have in your home country. So it's completely a new business that you're entering into, and this allows the founders, the directors, the key personnels to enter in with their family, with their children under the age of 18, and their spouse dependents to enter and explore that particular opportunity of business within the UK. The other solutions that we can kind of anticipate in this changing sort of scenarios that we are into, especially for the immigration part of it, and especially with regards to taking on with your associates in the UK, would be is to find out the right kind of associates. When you're kind of narrowing down the team that is going to be there, you need to be very sure because of the salary threshold that you're going to offer. You need to be sure of the resource that's going to take on that position. So the planning or sourcing of your associates or your team members, or shortlisting the team and getting the right people, will be important. There will be very less room to sort of experiment with the resource who may not have sort of the set skills which is required to perform in the business in the UK. Also, the compliances, you need to be now more accurate. You need to be maintaining your data. You need to be documenting for your sponsorship license and making sure that you're complying with all the requirements, even after you've got your sponsorship license, will again become very important, so that the sponsorship license are not revoked and there's no negative sort of comments on your holding of the sponsorship license. And the overall recruitment strategies need to be assessed properly, so that your future requirements as the business grows, if it at all is still dependent upon the talent to come from outside the UK, you need to have a proper strategy in place to sort of be in sync with the policies that are changing and are going to affect your business there. It still, with all these challenges, as I said, remains the most lucrative market, and the success stories that the Indian businesses have sort of have achieved in the UK inspires a lot of businesses to still enter, and there's a lot of potential for these businesses to grow in the UK and maybe join this list of successful businesses which are from Indian origin and doing well in the UK now. These are some of the sectors, which is again a very interesting question, though all the sectors do have, there's no restriction on the number of the kind of sectors that will do well, or the domains which are performing well. However, these are the few sectors which are doing extremely well. So we have technology and telecoms, which are topping the list, and followed by pharmaceuticals, chemicals, engineering, manufacturing, and business services that you see here. So there is a potential for these businesses in the UK. Of course, doing business in the UK is quite very easy. You see, it's it's a hub for innovative companies and startup companies in the UK. It has a very stable economy, and the ease of doing a business is something that is the reason why a lot of entrepreneurs prefer UK as a destination, right from registering your businesses to getting your business up and running. Literally takes you about 5 working days, and your business is registered with the company house, and you can start operating up over there. So the easement of doing that. Also, when businesses make this decision, they are around the associates, around the human factors of people who are going to be a part of that particular venture in the UK. And at that moment, because they are entering not as individuals, but with their dependent and sometimes with children, they need to see whether it takes care of the education for the kids, whether there's a social life for them, and of course the prime reason of entering is whether it makes any business sense to be up there. So UK is an answer in affirmative with all of that. Sort of concerns that you're looking into when you're entering, and it helps to have good universities in place. It also helps to have a good business environment, and it also is having a good social life is why it gets more preferred as a destination to do business in the UK. So these are some regional breakdown of geographies where you can see concentration of businesses. Of course, London has always been the city of aspiration where businesses would want to head in. But we kind of, when we strategize and we join the journey of the business owners to enter in the UK, we kind of go through the particular product services that they would want to offer, and depending upon that conversations we narrow down the place where you can begin with, and it's cost effective, and eventually of course you can all enter London at the end of the day. So the pathway could be is to head towards having an office in London eventually, but to begin with, because you're cost sensitive at that moment, we can kind of plan on which state or which particular part of UK would appeal more for your kind of a work to begin with, and then you can take it to the next level. So how do you do a business in the UK? The first step, if you're entering in for a sponsorship license, or you're entering in for self-sponsorship, or you're entering in as a business expansion route, the first and the foremost step is to incorporate an entity in the UK. And there are various structures available, and you can pick and choose the one that suits you in the UK, but that would be the first step. Now, I get a lot of clients who would have already incorporated a company in the UK in past, and there are a lot of clients who are just looking to incorporate a company in the UK. So if your question is, can I just do is an incorporating a company in the UK? Yes, UK Company House does permit you to incorporate a company in UK, but then how do you intend to sort of run your business once you have incorporated the company? And if you're looking to have a physical presence, you're looking to move associates, you're looking to have sort of, the business that you have in your home country, like you have an offline, you have online, you have website presences, or to enter into franchisee agreements and things like those, and then that just requires you to be physically up over there. Then in that case, you need to take it to the next level, which is, you set up your bank account, get yourself a VAT registration and PAYE registration, also apply for the insurance numbers and things like those there. And that's where, you need these paperwork to take your applications to the next level for sponsorship licenses. and then issuing your COS and your anti-clearance application up over there. So it's a long process that you go in through. And once you've done that is when you will be in a position to be operational and allow your team members to enter, live, and work in the UK as your employees. So the employee work, the doing business in the UK and the work practices that you have is you need to be abiding by the contracts with the HR policies, with the employment laws. And there's really nothing to be worried about because there are consultants, there are agencies who can handhold you and help you to set up the HR practices. There are management systems, which are HR systems in place, uh, which can be which can be included into your company to help you comply with all of this, so that you know you are within the framework and you are able to smoothly and seamlessly perform or operate in the UK. And finally, from Smart Move to UK, we kind of have assisted um, clientele from 26 plus countries. We highly rated as a law firm, and we've been recognized for our work by the Who's Who Legal. We also are part of the Immigration Legal Practitioners Association. So, in terms of partnering with you in this process, in this journey, we have all the competencies and we have all the expertise that's required for in-country support, out-country support that you will need, uh, including for you to remain in the UK and what kind of compliances would you need to be there. There can be more pathways to enter in the UK, like the innovator visas or the global talent visas or any other categories that you may have come across. But it is very, very important to do a correct assessment to see which pathway will get you a positive outcome once you initiate the application, because the time and the cost that gets incurred in the process is kind of waste, and it's precious as well. So it's important to do a correct assessment to find out on which pathway best suits you to enter in the UK there, and that requires a discussion, that requires a thought process to understand the different pathways in the totality, not just a quick fix to say we would enter in and just start, but to also know on how does this look like in a long term. So a short term view and a long term view needs to be taken into an account before you make this decision to enter and choose one of the pathway um, as a route to set yourselves in the UK. So Smart Move to UK can assist. I mean, we in India have presence in Mumbai, Delhi, and Bangalore. We have a very competent team who can guide you, assist you, and we'll be very happy to discuss if you are looking out to explore or understand more about how do you set yourself up in the UK, and any kind of questions that you would have around this particular subject. Would be happy to take it on now and answer your queries if you have anything. And well, absolutely a pleasure speaking to all of you, and thank you so very much for joining. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope you've got answers for which you had joined this particular webinar. If you think there's more information that you need, you can feel free to visit our company's website. There's a lot of videos on our YouTube channels. There's a lot of information on our website. It's a very regularly updated site, and it does have further more detailed informations. There's a lot of also conversation around taxation laws, because that's another one aspect that that you think that you need to know when you're entering into. So there is quite a lot of conversation around taxation laws as well, which you can find on our social media handles. So thank you very, very much for being here, and I'm happy to take in if you have any questions. You can leave it on the chat box, and we can take it up from there. Thank you so much. There's been quite a lot of interesting questions. I think one of the questions that we received is how long after incorporating the company can a sponsor license be applied? You can apply immediately. So after you incorporate a company, the sponsorship license application can quickly be made. There's no timelines that you have to wait in for you to make this application. Um, and the timelines that you're looking for a process is 6 months. So within 6 months, we should be able to complete the process. There are opportunities to fast track it. You can pay them the premium and you can fast track the process. Then in that case, the processing time can come down to 12 weeks or so. Um, and then the next question you have is if I got a COS and a visa, but after that and before joining, I got an emergency to stay in India so long. So how long can I stay? If you've got your COS and you've been granted visas, you would have a time by which you have to enter the UK. And given that you have an emergency, you can apply for a Wignet transfer. So there is an application where they would charge you within the VFS centres and by the British High Commission in India, you can apply for a Wignet transfer and you can have some sort of an extension. When it is an employment-based visas, they would also need to see if your employer agrees for the delay that you are having in entering the UK. So the support letter for an employer helps to say it's okay if, and they understand that there's an emergency. Um, you can do a Wignet transfer application that will help you give you some kind of an extension to enter the UK. Another interesting question we received is if you have a self-sponsorship route, what is the role of an authorizing officer and do I have to pay him? It's very important role that the authorizing officer has. They need to ensure that they are the face of the company between the company and the Home Office in terms of the compliances, and they have to ensure that there's no abuse of the immigration system for which the company is brought in their talent and they have associates um, in their country. So they have important role in terms of your payment. Yes, if the authorizing officer is an employee of the organization, and you will need to pay as per the hierarchy or as per the company norms that you have, which is your in-house policies primarily. Um, the next question is how much time it takes for a sponsorship license. I have answered and I'll answer again, but so it takes 6 months, but you can apply for priorities. And if you do get priority, it takes you about 3 to 4 months to get an outcome for your sponsorship license application. How much it would take to get a sponsored license? I believe you're asking for the fees, which is the government fees. There is a fee which is in place currently, but that's going to change on 5th of April, which is just very recently, in another, say, about 2 to 3 weeks' time. So we are not sure of the new fees, but the current fees is about £540 to register for a sponsorship license. What are the documents required for self-sponsorship? So the documents required are two-stage. One is the employer to give documents about their company, which is their incorporation in the UK, their PAYE registration, their employer-employee liability insurances that they have, and then once the COS has been received, you need to have all the documentary evidence from the employee on how that employee qualifies to to be granted the COS and the maintenance monies and the entire details of the employees. It is, Mr. Saha, it's the list will be more in lines of the company which is entering and the space that they are into. The one that I've said is primarily all of it will require is the incorporation certificate and the insurances, the PAYE registration, the bank account statements in the UK, etc. And then, of course, when you're applying for your COS, and then a separate set of documents required when you're applying for entry clearances after the COS is received. I would strongly recommend to take some sort of professional advice to get a tailor-made checklist of documents needed. In how many days one can get sponsor visas? Visas is a part which comes in after you receive your COS, and then you go to the VFS Center and the British High Commission issues the visas. Published timelines is 4 weeks, but they do have a priority where you can get in about in 2 weeks' time for the sponsor visas. And does the director of Indian subsidiary company, okay, UK has to follow the same route? Sorry, I haven't really understood this question, Ms. Anamika. You asking about the director of the Indian subsidiary company, okay, and UK has to follow the same route. I haven't, sorry, understood, but maybe hypothetically, I'm thinking you're asking me if a director from the Indian company can sort of head your UK operation, then yeah, they can do that. And you can do this by either the sponsorship route or the self-sponsorship route. So the new rules is to curb migration, that's right. And what about those who are already there? What will be the action item for them? How long they can stay or extend their stay? So very interesting question. At a macro level, yes, it is to curb migration. When we are looking at the clients and the clients are looking to enter the UK, they're looking at to micro level. It is at a micro level, these decisions resulting into business at a micro level. Does it mean profitability and a brand presence for the company, etc.? So at a national level, at a policy level, yes, all the countries will have to see that the migrations is under control, including that in India as well. What happens to people in there? I think the policy has been very fair so far. The changes that has transpired is only with the entry in the UK and not the ones who are already in there. At some places, they have also brought in that it will affect the status of the people within UK, but that's been challenged currently. It's still under consideration, and therefore you see if you're following gov.uk, they're not really published anything as yet on that lines, and they're very quiet on how that's going to be. So I think we will have to wait. It's not for very long, but in a couple of weeks we will come to know on what would that look like. But very interesting question. Thank you very much for asking that. According to your expertise, is the self-sponsorship route easy enough for one to go through? Yes. It's not about the route which is easy or difficult. It's about the company's positioning. It's about your strategy to enter the UK. Are you ready to take in more compliances? Are you sure about the business that you're going to enter into, or you are still uncertain, you are still weak, you are still thinking, I don't know, let me go and explore and think and see if it works for me, and if it works, then I will be happy to shift, or I can just come back. So then you don't take in too much of compliances, and then you don't take in too much of compliances, and you don't take in too much of sort of commitments to enter in. But you have to adhere to the rules on whichever category you choose to enter in. So what is self-sponsorship route? I had explained in my presentation, but I'm happy to share again. In this sponsorship route, it's the business owner, it's the founder, it's the directors, it's the key person of the business who will want to become the face of the company. So you could have two scenarios potentially. You could have one where you have key persons who would want to be the face of the company and would want themselves to be based in the UK, or you could have a team of people who are not the business owners, but they are associates, uh, they are people who will help to complete the projects or meet the business objectives in the UK. And if you're taking them, then we take the sponsorship route. We can also take the directors, we can also take the founders through the sponsorship route, or we can take them to a self-sponsorship route. And we do this especially when they're looking to set up another kind of a business. So, for instance, they're in hospitality in India, and then they're looking to set up a chemical company in the UK. Then that's very different from what you've been doing here. But you see, there's a prospect for chemical company, and you want to enter in to do that particular business. Then you can take in the self-sponsorship route because that's a different entity that you're sort of establishing. Both these routes are in a way overlapping each other, the self-sponsorship and the sponsorship. But you can discuss your particular circumstances and take a stand on which one suits you the most. So I think with this, we kind of have answered a lot of questions that you have, and there's a lot of information that is still available on our company's website and on our social media handles as well. So you can go through with that. And in case you should wish to connect with our firm, we're happy. This contact numbers and email address has been put up on our screen here, which you can go through. And thank you so very much for patiently listening and being a part of this webinar. It was absolutely a pleasure hosting you all. Thank you so very much, and I hope you all have a great evening. Thank you. Bye-bye.